Hello there and good morning. Lord David Frost has laid out his battle lines to take on the SNP and roll back devolution. Referring to the Perth incident last week, Lord Frost has come out saying that those of us who believe in the UK should start fighting back and look at unevolving devolution. That Perth incident saw those who support Scottish independence snarling, spitting and aiming obviously intimidatory behaviour at Tory party members attending a leadership hustings, as well as throwing eggs at pensioners on a bus. Something designed to drive big wedges between Scotland and the rest of the UK, or more specifically, England. But as an aside, if they were ever able to convince the majority of Scots that this type of behaviour was the correct way ahead to gain a referendum and win independence, how could they then turn that into a charm offensive to try and get us to buy their scotch and salmon and visit them again? The rest of us could end up viewing them as a hostile nation for decades. And when I look back to my Brexit campaigning days, we just stood on street stalls and invited people to meetings to talk about it. In fact, most of the abuse was coming in the other direction. Anyway, Lord Frost is right to point out that the UK is formed by two major treaties and that the UK is made of Great Britain and Northern Ireland as one unitary country. The regional assemblies are not governments in any real sense and were created much more recently, and importantly, there is no equivalent to the EU's Article 50 process. This is not a coalition of partner countries, it is one country. So Lord Frost advocates that there should be no move towards Scottish independence until Holyrood has had a 10-year period with 75% of seats in Holyrood occupied by members of separatist parties, thus showing a true settled feeling of the Scottish people. And he also wants the people of England to not adopt a sort of, oh well, just let them go independent type of mentality. And how about all the people of Scotland who have built their lives on the assumption of a permanent UK union, he asks. But I would warn that all countries need to be governed, and when in a democracy that means governing by consent, which entails that those who lose elections accept that result. And we're seeing less and less of that, and not just in the UK either. And bossing people and telling them that they live in one country and that's the end of it does not engender consent. All that would result in is a fast build-up to 75% of seats in Holyrood being occupied by separatists, probably at the next election. And I will also point out that at present, over 75% of Scottish MPs sat in Westminster are from Nicola Sturgeon's SNP and Alex Salmond's Labour Party. Lord Frost also questions why the SNP was controlling Scotland's borders during the pandemic and why Scotland has been allowed to establish its own embassies abroad. And that, of course, is all down to devolution. And devolution was always destined to end up with separation, not kill off nationalism for good, as some thought. And on the so-called embassies, these are just devices to try and get the international community to recognise Scotland as a sovereign nation. And one of the big drivers here is that the people of Scotland can look at Westminster and say, "What have you done for me?" With the answer being, apart from allocating the money, nothing really, because those in Holyrood are in charge. In fact, Westminster can't get involved. It would be illegal unless they legislated to change it. And that makes it all the easier for the likes of Nicola Sturgeon to say, "There you go, I'm in charge of a true Scottish government." And then turn round and blame Westminster for not giving her administration all the money it needed to hand out all the socialist free stuff. Somehow Westminster needs to put in place a system for the Scottish administration to be held properly to account for its many failings, and relying on the Scottish press and BBC Scotland to do this will never work. But allowing Holyrood MSPs the power of parliamentary privilege so they can raise issues in Holyrood without fear of legal action might help. But it does make Holyrood more like a full national parliament, a double-edged sword. At the end of the day, to keep the union alive in Scotland, it goes without saying that the majority must always believe it is better to be in it than out of it. And so the temptation is to hand over ever more power and ever more money to appease them. That is a one-way ratchet, and devolution has led to Scotland living under terrible SNP governance. But that governance was facilitated by Westminster and voted for by the people of Scotland. With 3 ever more powerful assemblies, all we've done is started the process of creating 4 countries out of 1. And when you look at it, this is the complete reverse of the way the EU operates. Brussels, over time, drains its member states of power and control. It tightens its own control over them, while Westminster is loosening its grip. Is there a middle ground?